Hi guys. So I wanted to put out a video today because I know I've talked about some things that have happened this week that eventually when I got to a good place I wanted to talk about. I feel like if I were to write this out in a post, it would be too long to the point where it would lose the attention of a lot of people, and that's not what my intentions are for this specific subject. It's very near and dear to my heart. It's the foundation of why I am the way that I am and who I am is because of what's happened as of recent. And I just want to put this out there now for anybody who's sensitive to topics like this. I just want to put this out there now that I am going to be talking about some sensitive subjects. I am going to be talking about things that have happened in my past. So if you are sensitive to any of these, I am deeply sorry, and I hope that you can take away something from this if you choose to stay and watch this video. I really hope and pray that you take anything, even if it's the most minuscule thing from this video. I hope that you take it away and turn it into something positive. My intentions here are not to make people feel sorry for me or to take pity on me. The reasoning for this video is to empower people. It's to allow others to look into the life that I had, and hopefully it'll impact you in a way to where you see things differently, you maybe parent differently, maybe you approach different situations differently, maybe I don't know, anything. There's gonna be a lot of rambling, there's gonna be a lot of scattered brain. This is the first video I've ever done. I'm so nervous. My ears feel hot, they feel red, my palms are sweaty, my feet are sweaty. I'm just incredibly nervous right now, so please forgive me if I'm rambling, if I'm stuttering, if I lose my train of thought. I am by no means a YouTuber or anything like that. Obviously you're gonna hear me say a lot, so please forgive me. I don't have anything written down. This speech was not prepared. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, but I felt like there was a lot of things still holding me back, and given what's happened this past week, I feel like it finally had given me a push to come out with this video. People who are closest to me know my story. A lot of people know the gist of it. A lot of people know a lot of details about it. But I just want to come out and tell my story. It's important to me. It's important for my closure. It's important for my health. And I want y'all to be a part of this journey with me. So again, I'm going to repeat this. This is my story. I am not speaking for anybody else and how they feel about this situation. I am not going to sit here and tell other people how to feel about this. This is specifically for me and for closure and for my mental health. So, here it goes. At a very young age, I was molested by my father. This is my real father. This was not a stepdad. This was not a friend. This was my real biological father. It happened over a span of time. It was a couple of years. Some of you may be like, well, why was it a couple of years? I didn't know what was going on was wrong. Straight up, honest, that is how I felt. I thought that happened everywhere. I thought it was normal. I never said anything because I didn't know what was wrong until middle school. Middle school, we had a sex ed class, and we started talking about your bodies and how it's important to you and how it's nobody else's, and how, you know, other people shouldn't be touching you in these areas and things of that sort. And that's when it clicked for me. that's when everything, my world, came crumbling down. That's when I established that what had been going on for the past couple of years was not right. It was not okay. And I was scared. I was terrified. I grew up in a household where we were told, don't speak unless spoken to, you don't interrupt adults. And I didn't feel as if it was my place to come out and say anything. I was scared, to be quite honest with you. And it wasn't until my freshman year in high school that a certain teacher, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he would feel comfortable with me publicly putting him out there, but there was a certain teacher who had found out, and the reason why they found out was because we were reading a book my freshman year in high school about a girl, and a couple of the students read ahead, and I was like, hey, what's it about? What's going on? And in the book, and I didn't think anything of it. And the kids were like, oh, she gets raped. And immediately it just triggered me. It flipped a switch in my head. And I just stopped doing my work. I wasn't interested in doing my work. I didn't want to do my work. I didn't want to read the book. I didn't want to finish. And this is AP English. And I talked to my teacher about it. For whatever reason, she wasn't the one who said anything. She went to another fellow teacher and told him about it, and he's the one who went and spoke up and said something. Next thing I know, following day, there's a knock on my door, and it's CPS. And my mom is confused and saying, well, what are they doing here? And I'm just like, I don't know. Beats me. Terrified. I'm 13, 14 years old, and this was a big step in my life, and I feel like it wasn't a step that I even wanted for myself. I didn't try and save myself. Somebody tried to save me from me. Someone tried to save me from this predator, and they did. At this point in time, my parents were separated, but I was still going over there every weekend or every other weekend, so I was still in contact with my father, and this was still going on even though they were separated, and yet and still I was still scared, and I was still terrified, and I didn't know what to say or who to tell or what would happen if I did say something. And there was just a lot of moving pieces in my life that just weren't connecting for me to the point where I felt comfortable to say anything. But anyways, I ended up going to a CPS facility, and I ended up speaking to somebody on my own without my mother in the room, and I had to give very intimate details about what was happening, it was happening with, why I knew it was this person, if there was any details about this person's facial structure, mustaches, facial hair, tattoos, scars, what they were wearing, what position the bed was in, where the windows were in my room, did I have any mirrors, did I have a door, what side was the door on. It was just very, very detailed. And as a freshman in high school, I had to sit there and explain to this person things that had happened over a course of years. The first time I remember this happening was when I was 8 years old, and it happened up until I was about 13 or 12, and that's a couple years of trauma and guilt, confusion. There was just a lot going on. I left that day knowing things were going to change and my world was going to turn upside down. And it didn't. It was very anticlimactic, to be quite honest with you. After that was done, the only thing that we were advised to do was a no contact, which was he couldn't contact us or me, my family, anything like that, and we weren't allowed to be in contact with him, which was fine by us. And if you think that 2 weeks went by and he had handcuffs on his wrists, no. It didn't happen like that. I was a freshman in high school when this happened. I did not get summoned down to the courthouse until I already had my oldest son, Jacob. And it was 5 years after the fact. So 2010, 2011 was when I went down there, and they had me say everything all over again. So everything in my statement that I had told the CPS worker, they had that same statement sitting in front of them, and they had me explain to them yet again everything that transpired from when I was 8 years old up until the day that I had said something to my teacher. One minor detail was off, and that detail to them meant everything. Now, they look at me and they're like, well, you said this instead of this. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And they're like, does it make sense or is it true? And I'm like, it's true. And they go, well, we're only hard on you based off the fact that if you say anything that's out of context in regard to your statement, at the time that you were given this interview, they're gonna go after you and they're gonna say that you're lying. And I was completely thrown off by that. I was 8. I wasn't writing this down in a diary. I got one little minor detail wrong. But anyways, they look at me and they said, you know, whenever this is spoken to him, he cries. He cries, and he said it's not true. He said he didn't do anything. He said this is, you know, ridiculous and da-da-da-da-da. Basically saying that he didn't do anything. And I sit there and I chuckle. And I remember they looked at me and they were like, what's so funny? And to look dead in the eye of these people who are questioning not only me, but essentially telling me how he's feeling about the situation, as if I'm supposed to have some immediate reaction. And I tell them it just amazes me that somebody so vindictive, manipulative, and predatory could sit there and cry and scream and sob to make you think that he didn't do what I'm telling you. But that is on him. I'm telling my truth, and that's all I could do at that point. That's all I had was my truth. So, not too long after that, I find out that he took a plea deal. And he got 6 years. In that moment, being 21, 22 years old, I'm thinking, 6 years? What's that gonna do? What's 6 years gonna do for me? In that moment, I'm there and I'm thinking the system failed me. They didn't do anything to protect me. They gave him a lousy 6 years. Over the years that I've spent suffering and what was done to me, and it just didn't make sense. So for a long time, I was very angry and resentful. I didn't understand how that made sense. I'm sorry, it just, I'm trying to think of other ways to explain that 6 years compared to between the time when I was 8 years old till I was 13 or 14 and all this stuff happened, and you're giving him 6 years. And you want to know what they told me? They said it would have been longer if you would have came to us sooner, but because you waited so long, unfortunately, he's not going to get as much time as he would have had you come to us and let us know sooner. Sorry. It's almost as if the system made it my fault that he didn't get more time, instead of being sympathetic or empathetic to me and what I was going through and the confusion that I had as a child, as an 8-year-old, they made it my responsibility that that's why he got the time that he got. Throughout middle school and throughout high school, I was a mess, to be quite honest with you. I was very lost. I felt as if I didn't know who I was. I felt like I had no moral compass. I did what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, with no regards to others or their feelings. I didn't care who was getting hurt in the process. I was very angry and very resentful towards a lot. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. For a while I did feel sorry for myself, and I pitied myself, and I said, why me, why this or why that, and why couldn't he get more time this, or why did I have to go through this, and why. I did not have a healthy mindset. I didn't handle my feelings well. I didn't communicate my feelings well. I inhabited unhealthy habits. And at that point in time, they worked for me. And I didn't know how to stop until I had my kid. And that changed everything. And it wasn't about me anymore. And it was about Jacob. And it was about being a mother. And it was about overcoming everything that happened in my past to be better for him and to provide and to essentially be a better role model for him. And it wasn't up until one day I was watching one movie and they said something, and it opened my eyes to an entire new outlook on life and how I dealt with things. And in that movie, they said, the forgiveness is not for the other person. The forgiveness is for you. And in that moment, I realized that this person who is not even a part of my life, who I haven't seen in years, who I have not been into contact with in years, who have not seen a single photo of in years, has power over me. And they don't have to do anything. He doesn't have to look at me, be in contact with me. He doesn't have to, nothing. Him existing had power over me. It ran my life. And I felt how weak I was in that moment and realized how much I lost along the way because I gave so much to him when he wasn't even there. And it was weak. It was weak, and I allowed it to happen for so long. And in that moment, I knew I had to take accountability for the things I had did, how I treated other people, and I needed to better myself. And I would dream of him, and one day I dreamt of him, and in my dream, I forgave him. I forgave him in my dream. And when I woke up, it felt real. And to me, from that day on, I felt like I wasn't allowed this person to control my life anymore. I had forgiven him for what he had did. I said it out loud. I said it in prayer. I said it in my dreams. I spoke of it. I believed it. And I've felt like that for years. For years, I've felt like that. And I have family members that say, like, well, how can you still call him your dad? Because he is. There is nothing that I could change about that. He is still my dad. He is in my blood. He's my dad. But him being my dad, or me being able to still call him my dad, doesn't take away from what happened. It just means that he doesn't hurt me anymore. And being able to call him my dad shows the growth. Do a lot of people like it? No. Does everybody respect it? No. But to be quite honest with you, I don't care. Personally, for me, that's just me. So through it all and through everything, I had to teach myself what love was. Because when someone that is supposed to protect you, take care of you, nurture you, build you, empower you, completely rips that away from you as if you were nothing, and just takes and takes and takes and takes, and you develop a sense of normalcy, and you think that it's okay because it's consistent, and this is somebody that you want to model over, so you see them just keep taking and taking and taking, and you think it's normal. And I thought it was normal. So at 28 years old, it took me years to teach myself what love was or is. It took me years to learn how to communicate. It took me years to establish that sex is not a way of establishing love. It took me years to understand that it's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to cry. It is okay to feel weak every now and then. And that anger is not a form of communication. And I had to teach myself that. I never went to therapy. I never went to go and talk to anybody. I never went to go and reach out. I did this. I found it in myself. I did it the hard way, and it took me a long time, but I did it. And I'm a better person because of it. I look at life a lot differently. It's made me a very strong person. It's made me a more connected person. And I didn't let it break me. There are times where I cracked, but I never let it really break me. And I'm proud of that. And it took me a long time to be proud of myself. Because after you go through stuff like that, it's hard to love yourself. You look in the mirror and you're disgusted. You're grossed out. You feel dirty. You feel like you could never be clean, and you just I would take a hot shower. It's like to where my back was burning because I felt so dirty, and I would just scrub and scrub and scrub, and it's almost as if I could still see the filth there, and I would just keep scrubbing. And it took me a long time to look in the mirror and just accept who was staring back at me. And it took me a long time to think that the person staring back at me was beautiful, because it's hard to acknowledge any sort of beauty when you feel as though that's the reason why you were taken advantage of to begin with. And it was hard. It was difficult. I wasn't able to see that the person that other people saw when they looked at me. And I think for a long time growing up, people would think I'm fishing for compliments, but it was never that. Little did they know it was something much, much deeper, and I was a very fragile little girl. And that fragile little girl lived inside me up until adulthood. I know I've written posts about this. I never went into depth as I'm doing now, which is because I feel like when I post this video, to hear my voice, to see my face, to hear all the details, I feel that's more personable for me. It's uncomfortable, but please excuse my cats in the background running and playing. If I put them outside or if I close the door, they're just gonna scratch and meow, so I apologize. But now that that is out of the way, what I want to get into next is basically everything that's transpired over the past couple years, I guess, which is that in the 6 years that he was supposed to serve, he only served 3 with good behavior, and he got to leave and be on parole. I always kept up to date with where he was and what he was doing and what address, and making sure he was registered, because my thing was, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. And it was important to me to know that he was registered always. And I remember having this discussion with my mother, and I told her, you know, if anything were to happen to him, anything, if they were to have a funeral, I'd be there. And she was confused, to say the least. And I know in the beginning, I just want to reiterate, I don't want to speak for others and how they felt. However, she was confused and it didn't quite make sense to her. But that's just how I felt. I didn't see this man since my freshman year of high school, and he has been a big reason why I am who I am. And for me personally, seeing him that last time would give me the opportunity to speak my piece and have closure for myself. It wasn't necessarily about being there to support him. It's about me and speaking my piece and my truth and getting closure, and essentially walking away from that situation and saying, I stuck through it till the very end. Well, they always say if you want to make God laugh, you should tell him your plans. Because this is what happened next.